Hi, welcome back to Mr. Slover's Math. Today we're focusing on proportion word problems. So yesterday we talked about what a proportion is and how to solve it. So our proportion is two ratios that are equal, and in order to solve we cross multiply. So here's a very basic example, and then letter B is a little bit more complicated because we have two terms in our numerator, so we have to remember to put that in parentheses. 100% of the time you see more than one term in your proportion, put it in parentheses. That way we make sure we distribute. 7 times x is 7x, 7 times 1 is 7, and then that equals the 6 times 4, which was 24. And we solve from there. So it's very similar, except today we just have to read the problem to set it up. So there are a few tricks. If you want to, you can get a highlighter out and highlight your important information or underline. I did not do that. I just went ahead and read it and then set everything up. So we'll talk through a couple examples here, and then there are other ones if you wish to try on your own. So on a map, the legend shows that every inch on the map represents 2.5 miles. Marissa measured the distance between Mathville and Nerd City to be 3.4 inches. To the nearest tenth of a mile, how far are the two cities apart? So if need be, highlight or underline that important information. It's talking about every inch represents 2.5 miles. That's probably something that's important. She measured between the two cities. It doesn't matter what the name is, but she measured between the two cities that it was 3.4 inches. It wants to know how far the cities are in miles. So we're comparing inches and miles. And so over in red, and you'll see this in my other examples as well, over in red, I'm identifying what I'm comparing. What is my ratio? Well, I'm talking about inches and miles. It said for every 1 inch, it was 2.5 miles. So I have 1 over 2.5 equals 3.4 inches. Well, how do we know to put inches up top? Well, over here in red, I said inches was in the top. It was in the numerator. So that's what I have to do here. 3.4 has to be up top because that's how I set up my first ratio. I have to follow what I did in the first one for the second one. But I don't know how many miles. So that's my unknown. That's my variable. So that's why I have x as my denominator. So once I have my proportion, and that's the toughest part, is setting it up. Once I have it, I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply. So 2.5 times 3.4, that's going to equal 8.5 miles as my answer. Now, just like we did in day one, we need to check to make sure that this is a reasonable answer. So if I came up with an answer that said 8,500, do we think that would be reasonable for these two cities if they're only 3.4 inches apart? Probably not. So that would mean I did something wrong. So as you work through all of these examples on the notes and on the homework, make sure that you do a very quick, does this make sense? Is this a reasonable answer that I can get? The second one, Mitchell is trying to draw a scale model of the school. On his paper, he wants 1 inch to represent 5 feet of the actual building size. If the height of the school building is 37 feet, how tall must Mitchell's model be to be a true scale? So once again, maybe underline your important information, highlight it. We're talking about inches and feet. So that's my ratio, and that's what I want to set up in my proportion. Inches is up top, feet is in the bottom. So it says 1 inch represents 5 feet. So 1 inch, 5 feet. The height of the school building is 37 feet. Okay, so 37 feet, well, up top is inches, feet is in the bottom. So it has to go in the denominator in the bottom. So that leaves my numerator as the unknown. How tall does the scale have to be? So that's my inches. From there, once it's set up, go ahead, cross multiply. 1 times 37 equals 5 times x. Divide both sides by 5, and x is 7.4 inches. So that seems reasonable. 7.4 inches is a reasonable answer. It's a reasonable size for a scale. The other ones are just more questions asking similar concepts. So if need be, go ahead, work through those. If you have questions,